Hi everyone, and welcome back to Farrand Film. Today I'm bringing you my first film review of 2024, a new release for 2024, and this is The Beekeeper, starring Jason Statham and directed by David Ayer, who you may know from things like Suicide Squad and from Fury. So to set the film up for you, Mr. Clay, played by Jason Statham, we later find out his name is Adam, that's not a spoiler, is a former operative of a clandestine organization called the Beekeepers, and the idea being that the Beekeepers work outside of the CIA, work outside of the sort of key authority that you might get in a country or even in the world. And after his friend and neighbor dies, after falling for a phishing scam, he sets out to exact revenge on that company that are responsible. This is a Sky original movie. It is getting a release in cinemas in the UK this coming Friday on the 12th of January. I've been able to see it. Thank you to Sky for the opportunity to do that. And like I say, it's in cinemas. I'm assuming at some point this year it's going to end up going to Sky Cinema, probably straight to Sky Cinema, out of when it's played in nationwide cinemas and stuff like that. And I believe it's getting a similar release in the US. So like the sort of synopsis kicks off with, we start the film with Mr. Clay, who is he's living on a barn next to this woman called Eloise Parker, and in the barn he's keeping bees, hence the name Beekeeper, and he is clearing out a hornet's nest and all this kind of stuff, and he thanks Eloise for looking after him. He says she's one of the only people who really sort of looked after him, and after this, we see Eloise in her house taking a phone call from somebody who claims to be somebody from a sort of tech company to help her with something on her laptop. And it's one of these things that I think we've all seen and we've all had the sort of worries of being involved of in terms of a phishing scam, in terms of our older relatives being involved in some sort of phishing scam where someone rings them up and says, "Can we have access to your computer?" And they, because they are unawares, do it anyway, and then they lose pretty much everything. And this is what unfortunately happens to Eloise. She loses all the money in her current account, she loses all the money in any savings, any pensions, and she loses money in a charitable account that she has access to as well. And this isn't necessarily a spoiler. This is something that I think has been set up pretty well in the press so far. Is that she then this is the catalyst for her to end her own life. And upon seeing this and upon realizing this, this prompts Clay, Jason Statham, to go on essentially a John Wick style rampage against the people that have caused this. Now, you get that whole setup in about 10, 15 minutes. And then after that, for the remaining about an hour and a half runtime, is essentially, and I'm going to keep mentioning it, it is essentially a John Wick style revenge thriller, almost in the same vein as something like an Equalizer, the Denzel Washington film. Um, but this is more to do with he feels like his neighbor, the one person in his life who he felt had done him well, has been hard done by, has been necessary, has been wronged essentially, and he wants to right that wrong. The neighbor's daughter comes into it. She's an FBI agent. She starts trying to essentially to track him down along the way with all the things that are going on, and the sort of big personification of the issue ends up falling on Josh Hutcherson in a role that is very different to the stuff that I've seen him do before, and Jeremy Irons, who I at some point thought he was playing his dad, but then it kind of comes out that he's more like a handler, because his mum is otherwise engaged. Um, there are good things and there are bad things going on with the Beekeeper. The accents are all over the place. Jason Statham, at some points, I thought was just doing his standard Jason Statham accent, and then at some points, I think he's supposed to be American. Jeremy Irons, again, I thought he was doing his standard Jeremy Irons accent, and then at some points, it sounds like he's trying to be American, all that kind of stuff. It is essentially the world of the Continental within John Wick, but taken out. And the idea of the beekeepers is that Statham was a beekeeper. He is now retired, and these were people who were covert operatives alongside things like the CIA, like I mentioned before. And it's a troublesome thing when a beekeeper goes rogue, and it's a troublesome thing when a beekeeper is coming after you because you won't manage to survive if a beekeeper comes after you, and you're the last thing that your eyes will set a sight on is a beekeeper. And it's that idea of, like, again, similar to the John Wick films where John Wick essentially is on a rampage. And then in one of the later films, it goes against the Continental because something happens on Continental grounds, and then everyone gets an alert on the phone. It's like, right, there's a price out for John Wick. There's a similar thing that happens here where it's like the one last remaining beekeeper has been contacted to try and get hold of Statham, but then it ends very abruptly in terms of what that beekeeper brings to it, and Statham just carries on with what he's doing. The film is very much FBI agents try and figure out where he's going to go next. Hutcherson and Irons and all that kind of stuff. The protagonists, the antagonists, worry about where he's going to show up next. We then see Statham. He then batters somebody. He beats somebody up. He kills somebody in the most extreme way possible. Like there's a bit in the trailer, which, to be fair, is quite delightful to see, where he basically just straps a belt around somebody's waist. He drives a car off a bridge, and the guy goes with the car. That is where the film succeeds. It succeeds in its excess, in that it's one of these films that, for me, I could just sit and watch and enjoy as the first thing to sort of break me into 2022 in terms 2024 even. Christ, I'm going back. 2024 in terms of new releases. It was a very easy watch on a Sunday afternoon. It was a very easy thing to sort of consume, and anyone who's a fan of Jason Statham, anyone who's a fan of like I say, like John Wick or The Equalizer or any films like that, you're going to enjoy this. It does exactly what it says on the tin. It does exactly what it sets out to be. It's not trying to be smarter than it should be. It's not trying to dumb certain things down. It is just what it is. It's a guy setting out for revenge in an action film, essentially. Um, and basically, we go from FBI agent to antagonist. So when we see Statham and he's batters somebody, and then we go back to FBI agent and we go to antagonist, and we go back to Statham and he batters somebody, so on and so forth. So and we carry on through it. The FBI agent's very likable. The villains are detestable. Basically, what they're doing and the sort of the joy that they're getting out of stealing money from people left, right, and center. And this isn't just an isolated incident. This is a company that are choosing to try and reap the rewards of everybody else's gains by making sure that they steal money. And they've got, like, New York has got this much money, Phoenix has got this much money. We're going to take it from all these different states and all these different cities within these states. Um, the CIA presence is a bit meh. Like, they have to show up because it's like they have to show up. And they're just sort of like random people just showing up. So I could sort of care less about that. But like I say, like, it succeeds in excess. It succeeds in being a little bit extra. And that point where, like, people are going to watch this and go, "Oh, that was a good kill, weren't it? Oh, that was a pretty decent scene, weren't it?" And then that's sort of as much as the life that it's going to get out of it. It falters by failing to develop the periphery, in that there are characters in the world and the world itself I should be caring about, but I don't care about. And that also includes Statham's Adam Clay. That includes Statham's Beekeeper. In that, possibly purposefully at this point in the first one, I don't know much about him. Like, I still can't tell you much about him. I can tell you that he cared for bees. His neighbor got killed, and then he went on a rampage to find and kill the people who were responsible for her. Not her neighbor didn't get killed. Neighbor killed herself, but he goes on a rampage to find the people who are responsible for her wrongdoing. And that's it. I can't tell you about his time as a beekeeper. I can't tell you about the things that he did prior to it, which is why, in the back of my mind, I'm just thinking, no matter how successful this is, unless it flops massively, which I doubt it will do, there's probably going to be a Beekeeper 2. There's probably going to be another sort of like building of a world around it. There is a bit of a character twist about half an hour before the end of the film, which I'm definitely not going to get into here. But it did turn my head a little bit. It made me, I was surprised. I didn't expect it. Which I thought was interesting, and again could lead on to a second one, could lead on to an extra world that is going to be developed here. It's definitely one for the Statham fans. It's definitely one for the John Wick fans. I don't mean to keep comparing it, but it's quite hard not to. It definitely defers to it. It definitely owes a debt to it. And like I said before, it's very, very easy viewing for a film to kick off the year. It's nothing too heavy. I know at the time, especially that I'm recording this and when the film comes out on the 12th, that we in the UK are now starting to get our Oscar baity stuff coming in. So like I think it's opening alongside Poor Things on Friday. And then we've got things like The Holdovers, we've still got Iron Claw on the way. So there's a lot of heavy stuff still happening at the start of the year, but this is a sort of brain break, exploitative action revenge thriller that I think a lot of people are going to get something out of. How successful it is at the box office, I don't know. I don't know whether or not people are choosing to see a Sky original, as I'll wait for that to come on to Sky, being as I pay for that already. I don't know. But it's definitely going to find its feet there, and it's definitely going to find its feet with an audience. Because I can imagine a lot of people liking this. It's not a bad film by any stretch of the imagination. It's not mind blowing. It's not like, breaking any boundaries or anything like that. It does exactly what it says on the tin, and I can't necessarily fault it for that. I just wish there was a little bit more in terms of the development of Statham's character, but in terms of action set pieces, it does exactly what it needs to do, and it's a pretty enjoyable start. It's an enjoyable start to 2024. So that's it. That's The Beekeeper, my first film review of a new release of 2024. I'm looking forward to trying to bring you as many of these as possible, as anything that I get out to see at the cinema. I'm going to try and get in a record and get this on. Very specific time that this one has to go out as well, 7 p.m. on the Wednesday before the release because of the embargo and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully I can do a few more of these as well. But yeah, that's The Beekeeper in cinemas on Friday, the 12th of January, courtesy of Sky Cinema, Miramax, MGM, certain studios behind that one, and it'll probably make its way to a UK TV screen soon, courtesy of Sky Cinema as well. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. I hopefully, like I say, I'm going to bring you some more of these. Keep an eye on the channel for all these top 10 lists that are coming out. Stay safe, look after each other, and I will see you next time.